Good evening, everyone. My name is Joy Wright. I am the lead learner and principal of King Philip Middle School. We are so excited to have you here tonight. And so just have an opportunity. I see the chat. So if you have the chat, you can use this at any point to kind of ask questions. Some people are letting us know if this is their first, their second, their third, maybe fourth. I don't know. There might be a fifth middle school student that's joining us. And so have a little fun, enjoy some of your parents and caregivers to be. Some of you may know each other already, and then there will be an opportunity over the next few years to get to know new people. So, this is our virtual King Philip Middle School orientation night. It's generally geared towards parents and caregivers, the adults in the house, but I have a feeling there might be some very curious sixth graders or future sixth graders out there. And so I am interested to know if there are any students who get through the whole presentation. Please let them know. I might have a little prize for them when we do our tours because I always like to recognize folks who want to know a little more. All right. As I said, my name is Joy Wright. I'm going to let the administrative team go ahead and introduce themselves and let you know a little bit about them. This is my 10th year as the lead learner principal at King Philip Middle School. I cannot believe how time flies. So some of you, if you are repeat K peers, we may have known each other over a few years. And if you're new, well, almost welcome to KP. Justin and Kelly, who wants to go next?
I'm Kelly Sousa. I am one of the assistant principals. I'll be working with sixth grade next year, which is very exciting. It is my first year at King Philip as an assistant principal, my fourth year as an assistant principal overall. I have 2 middle schoolers of my own this year, as well as 1 high schooler. So I am in the thick of it right alongside all of you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Gussie. I'm an assistant principal here at King Philip also. I'll be working mainly with 7th and 8th grade students next year. However, we all collaborate and work together all the time. I have 2 children of my own, one of whom is actually going to be a first-year middle schooler next year. So I'm in the same shoes as all of you and feeling those feelings. So I'm really looking forward to meeting all of our incoming 6th graders next year and working with Ms. Sousa and Principal Wright to help them feel welcomed and, continue their learning journey with us here at King Philip.
All right, so we're going to go through a few of our slides to give you an overview of King Philip Middle School. Now, those of you who may have attended the Meet the Middle School Principals Night, we talked in general about what it means to have a middle school student and how our middle school programming looks across the district. And this is the opportunity to kind of just zero in on what it looks at KP. So our goal is to give you a sense of what we value and give you a sense of what you can expect when you join our community. That's our goal. So we are a community that's working together. And so as you can see, kind of has this puzzle piece visual represents, we cannot do that alone or apart. And so we see teachers, students, caregivers in partnership. In the context of our school, we have counselors, interventionists, social workers, psychologists, nurses, along with our library media specialists, paraprofessionals, our teaching assistants, and then, of course, the administrators, custodial staff, office staff, nutrition services, security officers. We are part of the puzzle piece of a KP community supporting your child and, of course, your family during the next glorious 3 years ahead. Just to get a sense of who we are, I think this is important for you to know. We are currently today at 819 students. And so those of you who are kind of following the Board of Education meetings and things going forward will know that there is a decline. And so this time last year, we were at about 845. So we are 819 strong. That consists of this kind of makeup where you can see the percentage of students of color. You can see what our staff looks like. There are about 96 certified staff members and about over 50 non-certified staff members, all working together as a community. And so we are a diverse group of staff and students and families coming together as one community. We have what we say that are kind of big rocks, what we value at KP. We consider ourselves focused on student success. In the concept of Stephen Covey's big rocks, is you put the first things in first, right? Those big things, those are your priorities. And so our priority is student success. We focus on staff wellness. Students cannot succeed if our staff aren't growing professionally and taking care of themselves personally. And then we focus on community engagement. We cannot be a community that thrives if we are not focused on how do we engage student to student, staff to student, family to school. It's all part of those pieces. And so those are our priorities. And we try to look at our programming, what we do around those. How does this impact student success? How does this support staff wellness? How does this support our goal of community engagement going forward? So those are our main priorities at KP. So we understand that to cultivate these cultures, and this is kind of our mission, we want to cultivate cultures of high achievement, dignity, and respect. And so, in order to do that, we have to nurture relationships. We have to understand that when we come together, we are not doing this in an independent fashion, but that we are doing this as a way to come together and identify that. And so we want to make sure that we cultivate these climates through an engaging practices. We want those practices to be equitable. We want students and all of us that we're growing in our emotional awareness, and of course at this age too in our regulation. And so we do this in the following ways. One, we focus on the facts that kids do well if they can. And if they can't, then there's a lagging skill. And how do we support them in increasing that skill, learning that skill, practicing that skill, developing that skill? We strive to support students' academic, behavioral, and emotional skill development. And we try to do that through explicit teaching and opportunities for practice. We want them to understand that we want to be understanding and empathetic to the fact that students have different needs. We're all people, but we're all different, and we fall on the continuum differently. And so we want to make sure that we provide opportunities to recognize that difference and give students what they need when they need it. We as a staff are continuing to focus on how we can become culturally competent in our knowledge, in our understanding and practices to meet the needs of the students and our families that are right in front of us. And we want to support students' growing emotional intelligence through the consistent implementation of strategies that support the core SEL competencies. And so those competencies are listed below. They're the CASEL ones: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And we want to do that through the implementation of identified school-wide practices and policies. And then, of course, we have to partner with our families so that they are active participants in their child's learning going forward. So that's our focus area. Many of you, I hope, have seen the vision of the graduate. If you are a current KP parent or caregiver, then you should be well versed in this. If you're not, you may have seen this in board meetings, or perhaps it's happening, or they're starting to talk about it at your elementary school. Because when we talk about the vision of the graduate, we're not rushing students to high school. What the district has said is, by the time students graduate from West Hartford Public Schools, we want them to be able to demonstrate the following skills, these 8 skills listed here, and dispositions. And so as a school, we're focusing on these. Specifically, there are certain parts of these that are in that kind of lower tier that you see, the first part, the lower part, in the classrooms. They're looking at problem solving and creativity. They are focused on inquiry and critical thinking and effective communication and collaboration. That's happening in our classrooms. As a school, we look at overarching attitudes and dispositions and focus on those as well by talking to students very clearly and commending them, recognizing teaching them around honor and integrity, what it means to have respect for ourselves and others, what curiosity and love of learning looks and sounds like, and what determination and self-efficacy looks like as well. And so we are guided by that vision of the graduate because we want to make sure we're preparing students to meet the challenges and the opportunities once they leave KP and ultimately West Hartford Public Schools. Is this still me?
I'll take this one. So thank you, Joy. As this slide says, we want to promote students to be the best version of themselves. And to do that, we take those dispositions and attitudes from the vision of the graduate, and we try to make those expectations clear for students across settings. So obviously they're in classrooms vast majority of the day, but not only in classrooms, but on the bus, in the cafeteria, the hallways, the restrooms, wherever they are as part of our community. We try to articulate for students what it means to be honorable and to function with integrity, what it means to behave with respect for themselves and for the community, and so on. So we try to, again, make things very clear. We partner with our students and our families and make sure that they understand that their character counts. We know that students are more engaged in learning if they're have a good sense of self-efficacy, like they're doing things well, they know what it means to do well. So we try to make that as simple as possible for our students. As is common across middle schools and the middle school model versus a junior high school, we're a middle school. That's how we function in West Hartford. We use a team philosophy. So students are grouped into teams. As it says on the slide, it creates kind of a smaller feel. So when you come through for the tours, those students leading you through those tours will show you, like, this is the diamond area, the ruby area, or the topaz area of the sixth grade wing. And all the classrooms are grouped together geographically within the building. But it also helps the teachers connect with each other, and it helps interventions be common across classrooms. It gives a common set of experiences for kids on the team. And we try to maintain some stability with our teams year to year, but we also think every year when we're assigning teaching sections, how we group the adults together as well, so that there's a variety of adults on each team, and each student, no matter their personality, their preferences, has an adult that they feel like they can connect with relatively naturally. So it's not going to affect next year's sixth grade, but because we have smaller enrollment in next year's seventh and eighth grade, there's a split team that'll be split seventh and eighth grade. But for sixth grade next year, we have over 300 students that we know are going to be coming here. So each team will have approximately 100 students, probably a few more than 100 on each team. Let's skip to the next slide. And each of the team gets at least several students from each of our sending schools. So all of those schools feed into King Philip, and we try to group the teams as heterogeneously as possible, so that if you're a student coming, for instance, from Morley, you'll see several other students coming from Morley, but you'll also have kids on your team from Aiken, Bugby, a few from Charter Oak, some from Norfolk, Smith, Whiting Lane, and even schools outside of West Hartford. West Hartford still kind of functions as a magnet, in part because of our schools. So we do have people moving into the community from all over the country and the world, which makes our school a really interesting place. So we do, like I said, try to make these teams heterogeneous and group kids and mix them not only for sending school, but we also try to balance the teams for gender, for learning needs, et cetera, so that the teams are as heterogeneous as possible. And it gives students the opportunity to work with people from different parts of town, different backgrounds, and kind of, function in a community that's going to be reflective of the world that, we're leaving for them. So a typical day at King Philip, we open the doors at 7:40. There's a bell that rings, and we welcome students into the building, and we expect all of our colleagues to be in place at 7:40, to be in their stations or near their classrooms or wherever they're assigned. And that's an opportunity to for students to have a kind of an easy start to the day. If they want to get breakfast from the cafeteria, that's available. And then at 7:55, we play some music. Another bell rings, and that's the signal as the music's playing to move to period 1. And we start the day at 8 a.m. sharp. Throughout the day, there are 9 periods and an advisory period, so a total of 10. And one of the periods is lunch. So the vast majority of kids have 5 core classes that are listed there: language arts, math, science, social studies, and a world language. So at this point, you'll have selected, or your child will have selected either French, Spanish, or Chinese. If you haven't, our office staff will be reaching out to hassle you about that. And then each student also has 2 unified arts classes. Those rotate throughout the year. So if you don't remember this, that's perfectly fine. But they're 36 or 37-day rotations. So a student might have art and general music for the first 36 days of school. And then during the same 2 class periods that they had those, they'll have maybe health and technology engineering for the second 36 days of school, and so on. So those rotate throughout. So most students end up with 10 unified arts classes over the course of a school year. And then at each grade level, there's a learning lab that's common for the entire grade level. So all 6th graders next year will have a learning lab period at the same time. If you don't work for West Hartford Public Schools or West Hartford Middle Schools, learning lab is akin to what you might remember as a study hall when you were in school. What's different here than what you might remember is that all of the teachers on the team are available. None of them have teaching assignments during that time. So that's a good opportunity to get extra help, to ask questions of a teacher, and really just to get homework completed as well. If students participate in any of the performing music groups, band, choir, orchestra, or if a student participates in quests, Learning Lab is a time when those classes meet. So if a student is in a performing music group and quests, they won't have Learning Lab. So they would have to talk to teachers during class for extra support or before or after school. Most students we find that are in multiple things can manage that pretty well. So
moving on from there, this is what an example of a schedule will look like throughout the day. Like Mr. Gussie had said earlier, each day is set up with a 9-period block, or 9 periods per the day. You'll have your 5 core classes, including that world language class, or if it's an intervention block at that point, along with those 2 UAs. And those rotate through the year, as well as a learning lab. And then you have advisory, which is going to be attached to lunch as well. So in terms of student supports that we have in the building for the academic side, we have ESOL for our students that have multiple languages, as well as math and reading interventions. We have tier 2 and tier 3 reading interventions, as well as math tutors that come in and support students that may need supports in that area. We also have our PPS staff that work with our students in terms of their special education needs, as well as our students with 504, and then also our students that are receiving Quest. We do also provide homework center for students that may need additional supports after school, as well as Saturday Academy. We try to do every Saturday. It's a 3-hour block where students can come in for additional supports. And then we also have what we call a student success team, where if students are struggling in any particular areas, teachers get together and talk about different interventions that they could try, bring parents into those conversations to then work together on how the student can then improve. In terms of advisory and lunch being together, it's a 42-minute block, and advisory is that first 12 to 14 minutes of it. And within that time, we do some of that social emotional learning that's there. We have different web mentors, which is where everyone belongs. All of your 6th graders will be part of our web program. We'll have orientation at the beginning of the year where we'll do different web activities, run by our web advisors, who are actually our 7th and 8th grade students. During that advisory time as well, we do some of our social emotional learning, along with streaming that throughout the day. We also use the Ruler framework, which is an acronym for the 5 skills of emotional literacy. Ruler standing for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating. And we work that with our students so that we have a sense of self, stopping, understanding where we are, whether it be in a continuum of feelings and being able to express that. We also provide some school counseling lessons for students. Our school counselors will pull small groups and work with students in that capacity. And then we also have our student recognition. We have Student of the Month. We also do, this year we started a Happy Friday, which is just our team of teachers coming together and recognizing students for the great work that they're doing throughout the school day. So those are several of the supports that we have in our building. So in terms of student activities are a big part of what we do at KP as well. They typically happen after school. Seasonally, we'll have a fall session of student activities as well as winter and spring. These are all subject to change due to student interest, but these are all different examples of clubs that we've had after school. We do have one before school as well called Play. Up at the top of that second column, people learning and exercising. This program, kids come in around 6:45. They're there for about an hour before school starts and playing different games. It's an excellent opportunity for kids to get up and get moving. I have 2 middle schoolers myself, and I drop them off, every play session. I've never seen kids more excited to get up in the morning, but they do. And it's an excellent way to just get them started. They get moving, get some of that energy out, which is great because as you may or may not know, we don't have recess anymore at the middle school level. So this does provide an extra little time to get to be active with friends and doing an organized activity, which is always fun. After school activities as well, we have cross country, soccer, basketball, different unified arts programs, and all of the ones that you see here, various book clubs. Some happen several times a week. Typically, our after-school activities are Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Some clubs meet once a week or maybe once a month, and some meet 3 days a week. So students have the opportunity to sign up for these clubs and activities each week. We do provide late busing for students that may need a ride home. Some parents come and pick their students up right after the activities as well. But we do have the opportunity for late buses so that it is convenient for everyone and everyone is able to participate. So in terms of, we spoke earlier about creating effective partnerships and that community piece. And these are ways that we are able to have you as caregivers also join in to create those partnerships. Being aware, just starting with your child's progress. We have the parent portal, which is Power School. You may not be as familiar with Power School, but this is a way where you'll be able to check on your students' grades, as well as seeing if there's any missing assignments. It's a great way to communicate with your child to see what's going on, what they're doing in school. And it's a way to communicate with your teachers as well, to whether email them right away if you see something that you have questions or concerns about. So it's an excellent tool that we use all the time here at the middle school. We have our progress reports and report cards that are quarterly as well. Conferences, we have your typical conferences that happen in the fall as well as the spring. But truly, if you set up conference time with your team of teachers, oftentimes teachers will help arrange those times if you have concerns or things that you want to talk about with the team as well. So yes, we have the set times as we do the entire district like you've had normally throughout the elementary school. But again, at any time you want to speak to your teams, there's different opportunities to do that. Calling and emailing as needed is always encouraged so that we can keep those lines of communication open and build those partnerships. And, becoming a part of the KP community, whether it be actively joining the PTO, visiting the website for information, participating in family events. We've already had a bowling night, planning movie nights, doing different things in that capacity as well is always important to be part of the KP community. We do have a very active social media account. Instagram is at KPWHPS, just promoting what's going on in the school. It could be the recognition of students. It can just be, what's going on in the building and the different things that happen throughout the day. We also have our read our school in teams, which we have the communication. So we have a bi-monthly KP Connections, which gives a more overview of what's going on in the building. And weekly, our teams communicate what's going on more specifically at that team level. So we also encourage and have parent and caregiver activities and workshops, including book clubs, and just a variety of ways that you can get involved so that we continue to build those effective partnerships and build our community to be stronger for each other and for our kids that are coming in.
So while we're thinking about effective partnerships, we, as Kelly mentioned, we have our PTO. And so there are a couple of responses. There are people who are heavily involved at the elementary level, and they're like, oh, I need a break. And I need some time. And I say, just resist that urge. We still need you, maybe not in the same intensity, but we still need our parents and caregivers to be involved. And the PTO is a great way to do that. And so this slide talks about ways to get involved. We have some board positions that are open. So if you find yourself interested in being the secretary, or if you would like to be all right, let me get back there. If you would like to be the secretary, or if you are great at fundraising and you want to coordinate that, you don't have to do everything, coordinate it, or event chair or volunteer chair, we need you. And so election information will be up on the website soon. And they have a Facebook page. And so you want to check it out there. These are all linked. By the way, you will receive this in about 27 minutes in your email. So you will have this presentation along with our transition newsletter. All of that you can click on. So don't worry about taking copious notes, because you'll have access to all of these pieces. And so they're going to have our meeting on June 7th. That'll be the new KP PTO board, but a great opportunity for you as a parent to come, whether it's be involved in a board chair specific position, or just demonstrate, I'm here to be involved and create community. Come out, be involved. That would be awesome. We'd love to have you participate. If you are interested in either of those board positions, there's information that you can click right here when you see the presentation, or in the newsletter that we'll send out to you to say, hey, I'm interested, and how you can submit your information. But here's what you need to know for the King Philip Middle School PTO. They have a website, they have an email, they have a Facebook page. And so you have multiple opportunities and ways to connect. So make sure that you look at that. And there is an invitation as well regarding an upcoming Parents Night Out event where you can work out and then go to Gillette and have a little wine tasting as well. So some people only work out for the opportunity to have dessert or their treat of choice, but it's a great opportunity. There are 27 slots. So when you see that, if you are interested, be sure to sign up for that. So what's next? You're like, you've given me a little bit of an overview. What do we need to do next? So March is our building tour. So next week, many of you have signed up. There are 27 slots left. So thank you for the multitude of you that have signed up already. We will have in-person family tours March 20th and 23rd. So there's times, and we have 3 separate entrances. We do want to keep our groups because our students run those tours. So we want to make sure as they're talking, you can hear them, they can hear you, and they can be as effective as possible. And so we have about groups of 12, 15 if families need to bring a little one along. And so we have those happening the 20th and the 23rd. If you speak Portuguese or Spanish and you would like a tour, we have students for you. So please sign up. We have 2 tours on Monday and 2 tours on Thursday for you. During those tour times, as you're walking the building, some of our staff will be around, so you get a chance to see some of the sixth grade teachers. As you go through the building, depending on your tour time. And so you also want to look at the sixth grade orientation letter that's going to be emailed to you shortly. And so that's for today's video and our sign up. And so if you forgot to sign up, you'll have access to it as well. It was in several emails. Also, in addition, in that newsletter, I am asking if for some reason you have not chosen your child's language, or if they're going to participate in a performance music, please fill out the Google form there. Only if you have not chosen that. The only exception is, oh, my child said Spanish and they really want Chinese. You can use that form to say, this is the new piece. We really need that information. We are making choices and scheduling regarding that information for how many sections of Spanish or Chinese or French, right? As well as looking at our section. So it's very important that you complete that as soon as possible if you have not done so already. If you've done that through your school over the conference week, thank you. They will get that information to us. In May and June, we have our elementary visits to King Philip Middle School. And so if your child is coming with you, as they should, next week, they'll have an opportunity to come in late May, early June with their peers and see school in session. And so they'll have that opportunity. We have a parent caregiver workshop, A Day in the Life, that's run by our amazing school counseling staff. And so that'll be June 9th at 7 p.m. And then that's typically, we release our supply list. Usually we send out another newsletter usually around the end of school. So around that time, you will have the supply list necessary to take advantage of all of those July sales for school supplies. And then in August, we mail our team assignments around mid-August. We have our web transition where everyone belongs, where our 8th graders are running a program, and that's typically a few days before the start of school. And then in September, we'll have our open house and or picnics. And so those are the things that you can look forward to that's happening next. So this is an opportunity. If you have questions on anything that we've presented, or questions that you said, oh, I wish you had talked about this, but I still have this question, I didn't see it in the presentation, feel free to put it in the chat. I'm just going to talk about a couple questions that I saw already in terms of advisory. So our advisory 4 days a week outside of Wednesday is typically tied to lunch. And so it's usually about 12 minutes before lunch. And we have focus areas, right? So on Mondays, we call it Mindful Monday. We talk to students about, look at what your assignments are, look at your calendar for the week. What does that look like for you? What do you need to do? What teachers do you need to connect? On Tuesday, we call it Talk to Me Tuesday. There'll be some kind of prompts that they may do with their folks, as well as listen to the announcements by our amazing student news announcers and our student news program. Wednesday is our longer advisory. I always say 20 plus minutes. Is it 23, Justin? Is that right? 23 minutes. And that's where our lessons will happen. So we use Second Step. We've been using Second Step as a middle school team this year. And so that's when they'll receive a Second Step lesson, or we'll have our team recognition time, or web lessons and web activities will happen during that time. So that's our longer stint. And then Thursday, we usually focus on a theme. So this month is Women's History Month. And so they'll have some videos around that, or we're going to be celebrating in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be celebrating World Down Syndrome Day. So they'll have a video around that. This week is Say Something Week. So the administration is going to be doing a video for students for Thursday. And then Friday is our Fun Friday, where students may play some games indoors or outdoors, depending on weather and grounds. And so that's kind of like how we do our advisory over the time. Our advisors also typically run the fall conferences with students. And they're typically your first kind of phone contact to welcome you to KP, to welcome you to the school year, and they serve as a point of contact. It's the person that your child will definitely see every day, and they have a small community of students that they're with during that time. So just so that you know, a couple of questions in terms of what is advisory, how long is it, what does that look like? Someone asked about clubs. And so typically our clubs are managed by our staff. They are the advisors. We have a couple of instances where that's not the case. So, for example, we have an amazing parent. We weren't able to run math counts as a full club. And so we have a wonderful parent whose child has an interest along with several friends. It's a small group. He runs that. He comes in, he runs the pieces. He's been doing that for the last couple of years. So that's an exception. We have an outside provider this year who is doing Spring into Yoga. That's going to start in a couple weeks and running free this session. They're going to be free yoga classes for any interested students on Mondays, every other Monday throughout the spring. So they're mostly it's teachers, but then there are times when there are opportunities where other folks will kind of step in and support or co-facilitate as well. Does anyone see, Justin, did you ask a question someone may not go through the chat that you might want to kind of bring forward?
There was one question, how do I change the language if I already did the form? So as you're going to be getting an email in about 18 minutes, and in that letter, there's a link to a Google form, and you can change a language choice there. Again, you don't, if you've already chosen, your child's chosen a language and you don't want to change it, you don't need to do that. But if you do want to change it, or you haven't yet, your child hasn't yet selected one of the three world languages that we teach here, you can use that form to make that change. There was another question in the chat, which was how many minutes or hours are middle schoolers on screens at school on a typical day, and specifically how much time is spent on laptops. So less than we were doing certainly 3 years ago. Our teachers, were forced to use Google Classroom during the pandemic, and have, found that there's lots of benefits to being able to use computers for things as simple as word processing. You type something, it's a lot easier to edit it if it's typed. Sometimes if kids are going to work asynchronously, so like work on something that's the same, but they're in different spaces, or work on it at different times, computers are great for that. There's other quizzes and tools that are available that are more engaging for kids. Sometimes that we use laptops for that. Students aren't ever on their phones during the school day here, though. So that's a rule that's common across all of our middle schools. So I don't know if I can answer the question super specifically how much time. But again, a lot of our teachers also recognize that because once that screen is open, the entire World Wide Web, aside what our filters out, but there's just so much available. And if with some of our students who might have a little bit more difficulty sustaining their attention, can get easily drawn away by other tabs. So teachers are migrating more towards using, hard copies of papers and with pens and pencils. So it's a balance, and it's changing year to year, and it changes in different classrooms depending on what we're working on. I saw cross country. Cross country is actually our only interscholastic sport. So we have a lot of intramural offerings throughout the year, but the cross country team it's a fall sport, and we get, upwards of 90 kids usually that participate on the cross country team, and they actually run against other schools and other meets. So that's in the fall. Everybody that comes out can participate.
In terms of the Chromebooks, I know there was a question that was brought up. Can you bring a home device? You can bring a home device, but we do have Chromebooks available for all students with Chromebook cards. So we encourage those. We're able to put we're able to support those better in the school. But we do have Chromebook cards that get charged every night. The kids don't typically leave them in the lockers. They recharge them every night so that when they come into school, they have full battery and off they go. So that's how the Chromebooks are done in the school. And in terms of the 7th and 8th grade split teams, classes may not necessarily, they'll have 7th grade classes and 8th grade classes, just sections of how they're taught throughout the day. So you'll share similar teachers in the physical space, but you'll have separate classes. We do have a few math classes that may have some combined, whether it be 6th or 7th or 7th and 8th grade students, more those honor algebra type classes or their upper level classes there. But typically all of our classes are within the grade level.
Someone asked if you can request that your child be on the same team as elementary classmates. This is like a yes. So we want, and in that newsletter that's going out to you is a placement feedback form, right? And so that is kind of a form where you say, hey, let me introduce you to my child. This is the kind of their skills, their areas of growth. This is where they thrive best. These are the kinds of, situations. And you might say, and here at one of these folks would be great. So I want to be very clear that as we try to schedule classes and do things, every child has different needs, even among friend groups, right? And so we cannot say, and I've had people say, I want them with all 5 of these people. That's not going to happen. I cannot promise and guarantee that. But can we say like 1 or 2? Yes, we can look at that to the best of our ability and at least acknowledge. Now, we don't know incoming 6th graders in the way that we know our current 6th, 7th, or 8th graders. So whenever there is someone who is making a request like that, specifically when they're saying, I need, like, it would be very helpful if they had this touchstone friend, this one person, then we say we need to hear from the other family too, right? We need to know, and we're not guaranteeing, but we're more likely to consider the request when someone is asking for one person, when that is corroborated, supported by another family member, because we're at middle school, and it doesn't mean that kids won't be friends with each other outside of middle school, but it's an opportunity to kind of reset, revive different kinds of things. And so the answer is yes, with caution. But that's something you can put in that placement form. Our counselors very soon will start having conversations with 5th grade teachers. So they'll start to ask questions like, are there supportive folks for this person? Are there people who maybe they shouldn't have classes with, that may not be, they might not thrive with? If you have something specific that you feel like you need to let us know, you can obviously always email me. Kelly Sosa is going to be the 6th grade administrator next year, so you can also email her. We put this all into a super huge spreadsheet. It requires a lot of work, and so a lot of people don't always request their child to have this. They kind of say, we're going to work it out and see what that looks like if you have a unique need. And we do I want to be very clear, we do have specific considerations for students who have specific needs, right? There are students who might have 504s or IEPs, and part of their goals are those social kind of goals. And so we try to be very sensitive to those things specifically. So we are open, but we also want to be reasonable with what that looks like. And so you'll see that placement form. It is a Google form. Please feel free to fill that out. I think we did ask that it's no later than June 1st, right? It's difficult to kind of honor things when people are telling you in the middle of July. The summer, we try to get a lot of scheduling done early. And then, of course, it's summertime, so we are in and out on vacation. And so we want to make sure we have time to kind of schedule things appropriately. Did I say that right, Justin, as the scheduler?
Thank you, Joy, for sharing that information. Yeah, I just want to caution, we do, like I said earlier, we try to make the teams as balanced as possible. We also want to make our class sizes as balanced as possible. So when we have kids choosing 3 different world languages, and some students might be in honors math or standard math or in advanced grade level math, and then we want to balance for sending school, and we want to balance for gender. When we start getting really specific requests about keeping students together, that can become really, really challenging. So that's why we caution about, I try to caution Principal Wright and my administrative colleagues and also our school counselors about making promises about that, because sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, we don't want to group kids in a class of 27 and have another class of 12 because there were so many requests that kids be grouped together or kept away from others. Or so we say yes, we invite your input, but we really want to know about like what your kids' learning needs are, what kind of teachers they might fit with, more than which students they might want to be with, because those are hard to honor.
In terms of I saw one question kind of float through just in case. The laptops being left at school, yes. The students can leave their Chromebooks right here at school. If you need one to have at home, we have a program where you could just go to our library media specialist and they'll sign one out for the year, and you'll just sign a contract, and that can stay at home. But in the building, we leave the Chromebooks every night right within the building. But if you needed one, we can arrange for that as well.
I think if you look in the chat, lots of questions about after school activities. And as Mr. St. Germain mentioned, and so we want to make sure we respond in writing where we can. Thank you, Mr. St. Germain. I want to just use this opportunity to give him a shout out. He is our library media specialist, our tech guru, our everything. If I need it, we ask Mr. St. Germain, and so he's behind the scenes responding to your questions, and so it's helpful. We'll respond verbally, but also in writing, so that you can always kind of look through this, so that you're clear about that. Our after school activities always run 3 to 4, so that's more than enough time. They'll meet the bus in time for that if they are scheduled for the bus. Sometimes families come and pick up students as well. And it depends. Someone asked about math honors classes. So if you are wondering about math placement, that's typically sent in May or early June, right? We love it to send as early as possible, but typically that's when it's sent. There's a letter emailed out and let you know where you can see what your child was recommended for with respect to that, and how many sections of an honors or any other math class runs. And remember, at the 6th grade level, the only differentiated class in terms of honors is math. And so you'll know about that in either May or June. And then in terms of sections, it depends on how many requests that we have or recommendations. So it's difficult to say this many sections. I think this year we have 4. Justin, is that right? Is that what we're talking about? We have 4 honor sections that I've run, and that changes, right? So we have 4 this year. But depending on and the teachers are constantly recommending. So by next year, based on the recommendations they have for this year's 6th grade, it may be different for next year. And so where you are is not a stagnant place. So I want to be very clear that if your child isn't recommended for honors, you can have a conversation about if you would still like them to do that. That's there. All of that will be in the letter. But there's also this piece of, they also always have opportunities to move over the course of their 3 years. It's not a stagnant place. Oh, I will never take honors because of that. Teachers are always making recommendations. Sometimes students start to see different things based by the middle of the year, by the end of the year, et cetera. And so it is fluid, right? Is it a fluid process? Are there any other questions? I don't want to keep people who don't want to be kept. And at the same time, I want to make sure that everyone has their question answered. I did see something about Math Quest in 6th grade. There isn't Math Quest in 6th grade. Typically, when they get to the middle school, if your child is in Math Quest now and achieving in the growth that's expected, they will end up coming probably into 7th grade math next year. And so they don't call it Math Quests, they're just accelerated. And so typically a 6th grader would come in and they're taking 7th grade math, which means by 7th grade they'd be taking 8th grade math, and by 8th grade they're going to the high school for, I think they're now Algebra 1, right? Yeah, so they would be doing Algebra 2.
Two.
Geometry, yeah, algebra 2 at the high school at that particular time. And so all of that is kind of explained in that letter as well. So I do not know about yoga yet. This is a new provider, and so I think it depends if she's willing, and depending on the interest that she gets from this year's students, will determine what it looks like next year and the cost. I think when we were running it in a spring with a different provider, she was doing like $10 per session or something like that as well. And Mr. St. Germain said lunch is by grade level. And so you're only going to eat with sixth grade. You're only going to eat with seventh grade. You're only going to eat with eighth. We are a middle school of sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And we share a similar schedule, but we do try to keep, especially for our sixth grade students, as contained as possible. There is you'll see it when you come for the tours. There's a sixth grade area, but clearly they're a part of our school. So they'll take tech eng and, technology and engineering. Next to their class is the seventh grade and the eighth grade down the hall. So they are part of the school community, but it's not a lot of intermingling. Here's where it shifts though. Sixth grade, if you're doing no bake cooking, a sixth grader is taking that, and they may make seventh grade and eighth grade friends. If you're doing after school basketball, you're going to engage with sixth, seventh, and eighth grade friends as well. And that's a good thing. They get a chance to kind of meet folks outside of their grade level. But during the typical school day, they are with their grade level peers identified. And assign seats at lunch. I think at the beginning of the year, they start with their advisory groups. They start with their advisory group, so they're assigned, get to know your small community, and then they kind of filter out. It shifts and changes through the years, and so sometimes they may say choose your table groups, and so it shifts and it changes throughout the year. The one contention probably is, and I'm just going to be honest, most kids are. We get it. We're not on the same team. It's hard when they can't sit together at lunch, and so we continue to kind of look at how students show their knowledge of our expectations, and then we kind of make decisions about cross team days, etc. And so that is a nice touchstone opportunity, and we try to keep it as least restrictive as we can as well. Basketball is an after school club. If you go on our website, you'll see all of the clubs and activities. And I have to say, Mr. Fleming, who is our after school or school activities coordinator, is fabulous. He's fabulous, and the opportunities, they have sessions, winter session, fall session. There are lots of things that students can do and be involved in should they choose to. We have some students who are there every day. And as Ms. Sousa said, we typically don't have clubs and activities on Fridays except for the musical, which is running now. And at some point, stage band was running on Fridays too. But there are kids who are here just about every day, either in a before school activity, if they're doing play, and after school. And so as much as a student wants to be involved, they absolutely can be involved. Anything burning. As we get ready to go, I just want to remind everyone that our tours are happening next week. If you can't make it, don't worry about it. It's okay. Your child will also still come up with their class in May or late May, early June. If you can make it, you'll see many of us there as well. And so you'll get lots of questions answered then. But if you have specific questions, they will have School Spirit. The school store is another kind of gem for KP. It's mostly student run. And so I'm really proud of those students, but they'll be there selling some spirit wear and some magnets and things like that are all things KP. So if you're sure this is what's happening in the fall, then we want you to kind of rep your new middle school. So that'll be an opportunity as well. And then you'll have an opportunity to connect with some staff. The three of us, there'll be counselors there. You'll get to see students in action, current sixth grade students, as well as seventh and eighth grade students as they're doing the tour, and meet some of the sixth grade teachers who are currently there as well. So there are lots of things that we want you to think about, consider. I know that this can be overwhelming in some senses, but this is what I want to say. Enjoy the last few months, even though we're kind of planning for the fall. Enjoy the last few months of the fifth grade experience. Know that you're planning ahead, but don't let that take away from this really special time as you're kind of like closing out your elementary school experience. And just know that we're ready to welcome you, and we're doing what we can to make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible. And it starts with what you're doing now, coming to the tours, coming to the visits, and just kind of introducing yourself to the King Philip Middle School community. So thank you so much. We hope to see you next week. And if not, then remember, we will be in communication. We have your email. You can always reach out to us. You should be receiving the newsletter in a few minutes if it's not there already. Make sure, I am not the one that scheduled it, so if you're not getting that by 7:45, just let me know. I'll look at my email and make sure that we get it to you first thing in the morning, since I don't have all of your emails at my ready, but hopefully it is there now or soon to be there. Thank you so much. I want to say to Mr. St. Germain again, and to Ms. Bolanos and Ms. Lozada, who are our interpreters working with our families right now who would benefit from interpretation. Thank you for taking this time to share this information with our families. Have a wonderful night, everyone.